take home the gold.
He could be too far. No, he's digging. Oh, what a catch!
Puts a spicy forehand out in front of Naomi Morsilla.
Move for the win. Team Canada. Garrett Wu!
Santos with the layout grab.
Oh, that fantastic grab. The claws of Chaffer.
Canada just became the world champions.
Yo, Canada and the rest of the world. You're listening to the Huckin podcast. I'm your host, Theo, living in St. Catharines, Ontario. And we got a big episode for you. 3 main events. I know. It's kind of wild. So 2 main events with college teams, because we got UBC and UVic coming on the podcast. So that's fun. And then we got TUX Preview, which is a big, I'm going to say big because I'm from Ontario and I love this tournament. You'll hear me talk more about it in the subs only. But it's an early season tournament for a lot of club teams in that part of the country. So it's a good test for teams. It used to be sometimes a tryout tournament, more so now. Teams have their rosters figured out before it. But that is one of the tournaments I look forward to during the season. And I'm excited to take part in it this weekend. So with that being said, that means that tryouts are wrapping up pretty much for a lot of the teams. I think some of the higher level teams, at least in the neck of the woods I'm in, are still into tryouts, but some teams have already finalized their rosters, so you can check that out on their social media pages in upcoming weeks, because I'm sure they'll be posting it. I am on some teams. I'll be playing, but I won't release it just yet until it's made official out there. So some of you might already know, but I'm not going to share it into the public sphere just yet. But tryout season was really fun, really tiring because you got to go to multiple. And you got to keep your mind locked in. That's always hard. I always feel that's the most difficult thing, is just trying to not think about the what if this doesn't go your way kind of deal. So you kind of got to stay locked in, as people often surmise. So that's what I've been up to. Work, once again, is chilling. We're chilling out here, preparing for next season. So that's good stuff. But I'll be in Wisconsin in a couple of weeks. Excited to be back on the mic for that and taking in all the cool college action, both D3 and D1. So if you have an Ultiworld subscription, you can check that out. And if you're not subscribed, you should be already. I want to give a little quick shout out to Deep Look for 500 episodes. Huckin is definitely not there yet. So getting to 500 is a pretty big milestone. And I know it started with Charlie Eisenhood and Wes Kronk, I believe is his name. So it started before Keith Rayner. So it's evolved a little bit, and I would say that this show has in some ways as well. So big love for that. Really cool to be able to have a podcast for that long. And one of the big reasons why I got into Ultimate was through Deep Look and just keeping up with all the new things that were happening, tournaments, picks contests, etc. So that actually played a big role, more than I think I often don't say, but that played a big role in my interest in Ultimate, and then especially jumping onto the media side, seeing a lot of the broadcasts on Ultiworld or Next Gen. That was a pretty big role. So thank you for all that. Let's just jump right into the news here, because we got some things to talk about, and then we'll jump into 3 main events as well. So let's hit the news right now.
We now have breaking news.
All right, we'll start West Coast. Sun Flicker, a tournament hosted out in Kelowna, BC. So for those that don't know, there's a tournament called Sun Flicker. It's not I would say it's not like the tournament that you might see out here in Ontario, where all the club teams are going. There was a few club teams that went, but it wasn't something that all of them went to. Or all of them have gone to. So Mind the Gap, which is a team of some Vancouver club players I recognize, they won the tournament. So they're not a club team. Red Tail, which had some AFC players, I believe some Remix as well. They came second from Alberta. And then some Kamloops players on a team called Parch came third. But the thing I'll bring up is some club teams that were involved. So TT defeated Lit by 1 to get to the 5th place game, which was not played. And then Fable made it to the 7th place game, but that wasn't played either. Masters team Penguin Village from Saskatchewan came 10th. And Happy Campers, another Masters team out of Victoria. I think it might be Grandmasters now. I don't know. But they came 11th. So that's sort of what happened there in Sun Flicker. Short but sweet recap there. Now we're going to jump way into the other part of the country in Toronto. Not the full East Coast, right? But, somewhat more central, I guess. Ultimate Canada High School Invite. Is that the proper name now? Gotta make sure, because it used to be called the Canadian High School Ultimate Championships. It still is if you look at their past championship results on their website. But it changed a little bit because, we talked about last week how some BC teams couldn't go. But the UCHSI happened. One of my friends, Andrew Portland, was on the call. So I got to commentate with him last year. He got to do it this year. So pretty cool. So when Pool A, we'll start with just right bang on with the results. The top 2 seeds advance. So Adam Scott Lions are defending champions, and the Nepean Knights from Ottawa. Same thing with Pool B, your silver medalist from last year, the Bowmanville Talons, as well as my favorite mascot in this tournament, the Cactus from Notre Dame in Montreal. Pool C had the Etobicoke Rams going 3-0. So this is of note. The team that finished 5th last year, St. John's Ravenscourt from Winnipeg, they went 0-3. So that is tough. Le Coude from New Brunswick gets second in the pool. The Marshall McLuhan Rebels from Toronto, Ontario, is the 3rd actual 4 seed in the pool to win a game and go 1-2. So unfortunately, there's no crossover. So they're still in the lower bracket, but it's kind of cool to see multiple teams fight out of that, right, and get there. So Westwood Warriors as well from Winnipeg in Pool A, and then Cawthorpe Park Panthers from Mississauga, Ontario, also won a game as being the last seed. I think Westwood and Cawthorpe Park both were making their first appearance. Well, they didn't play last year, so they're making an appearance there. This year, everything goes to seed in Pool D. The Calvin Clippers, you'll hear about them again. They go 3-0. And the RS McLaughlin Trojans out of Oshawa come in second, setting up your quarterfinal matchups. They got the late start, so they started at 11 a.m., ended at 4:50. So it's kind of cool that the teams in the lower bracket, maybe they could go watch the finals if they would like to. That's always fun. So let's start in the quarters. Notre Dame. Hey, this is the first thing we got to talk about is Notre Dame defeating the defending champions 13-12, because that is a big deal, okay? For them to take down – Adam Scott looked very good last year. I remember when I was calling their game. So that is a big deal. I'm just pulling up some notes here. Port Wine, obviously, as a commentator, was boots on the ground. And so he was able to kind of see what was going on. He talked about how the top 2 seeds were done early, and that is true because Bowmanville in the same – or not the same side, the opposite side of the bracket, they were supposed to kind of meet in the final, at least based on what you would have seen last year. But they fall to the Nepean Knights. Carlos Baus, big fan of the podcast. He coaches that team. And so a big victory for them to be able to do that. This is what I was told. Nepean did a good job of shutting down the deep, quick goals of Bowmanville. So that's boots on the ground. That's what was relayed to me. Unfortunately, there's only one stream quarter semifinal, so you're not going to get all the action. Calvin, the Clippers, defeat Le Coude 13-8 to get to the semifinals as well. And then on the same side, Nepean, Etobicoke, they're perennial contenders. They also defeat RS McLaughlin 7-5. We know that Downsview can be a bit windy, so perhaps that plays a role into some of the scores that we see here. Etobicoke continues their winning ways, beating out Nepean 7-6, and Notre Dame falls to Calvin 13-5. Calvin, by the same scoreline, defeats ECI to win the title. They last won the title in 2019 and 2018, so safe to assume that those players on that team have graduated, and so a new crop of players are in that program, and they were able to carry them to a title. They were led talent-wise by a few strong players on the male matching side, I've been told. SJR apparently lost a lot of players. So once again, this is what I heard from the boots on the ground, okay? Unfortunately, I was not there for this tournament. Congrats to you, Kelvin. Pretty big win to win by those 2 score lines. ECI getting to the final, but unfortunately just coming up a bit short there. So a good run from them. I'm just pulling up. They came third last year, so moving up to second. So, hey, trending upwards perhaps to first. Notre Dame with a big win, 12-11 over Nepean to take third. Le Coude, want to give some love to that because they're from Moncton. I think they're a conglomeration of schools from what I remember and what we've written down. So Odyssey, Mathieu, Martin, and Clement and Cormier, a mixture of schools. I think those must be smaller schools out there. They defeat Bowmanville, so the big bad Bowmanville goes down 12-10. And then Adam Scott, a big fall from grace here, the number 1 seed overall, champions last year fall all the way to 8th. So RS McLaughlin, the Oshawa team, defeating them there. In 9th, we have St. Matthews from Orleans, Ontario. They defeat the Rebels of Marshall McLuhan 12-8. So that's what happened in UCHSI high school tournament. Good stuff. And I'm hoping that these teams, they actually continue playing. There's a lot of these players like go play club, go do that. Okay. Because it's a good thing to continue to build. Then you can go play universities and things like that. So let's jump into US regionals. Okay. Before we go into, we always talk UFA, but let's talk into US regionals here. We're going to start with the lone Canadian team out east in New England. Okay. So we're going to start there. What a run for this McGill team. You can see some of the action. I was on Field Pass for it. You can check it out. Let's start with how their pool play went. So they defeated UMass B 13-3 and then fell to Brown. Yet to beat Brown this season. They fell 13-10. So they're not in dire straits. They got one W. The big win was getting the crossover to beat Harvard 13-5, putting them in the bracket here. That is where they score a huge victory over a team that some would say maybe has at least quarters aspirations, perhaps semis in Vermont, a team that made semis last year. So McGill won 13-12, huge win. That sets them up so that they can go into the bracket on Sunday where they have multiple chances to make it. So because that region has 3 bids, they don't have to win that first game if they win their first game, they're automatically going, but they didn't have to. They unfortunately fall to UMass 15-7. I think as things start to get away from them, they are hoping that they just wisely decide to shut it down and live to fight that next game. So they immediately have to play and beat Dartmouth, close scoreline, 14-12. And then so they run into the same Vermont team who beat Northeastern. That game was also, you can see on Field Pass, a close game. Northeastern was keeping up with Vermont. I think Vermont's offense is just a little too strong there. But it's Vermont's defense that actually does the job here, defeating McGill 15-9. From what I recall as someone that was watching that game on the call there, Vermont didn't get broken the whole game. So McGill's goal was to make it to the game to go. They did that twice by making it to the semis and the actual game to go as well. So got to give some love for that. It's tough in the New England. Remember earlier in the season, we thought they might have had a chance to get another bid for New England. Unfortunately, that was not the case. And so they live with the results the way they are. So tough for McGill, but great season overall. Let's stay in men's. Jump now into Burlington, Washington. UBC, we'll start with them. They were the 6th seed overall in this tournament. 2nd seed in Pool C, they had Oregon State and Washington B. They beat Washington B 13-6. Fall to Oregon State in a close contest, 13-11. Victoria was the 5 seed overall, 2nd seed in their pool in Pool D. They lose a close 12-11 contest to Utah, but they take care of Washington State. And I can't even tell you what's Washington State's team name. I think I made that joke last time. I actually don't know. So now there is 2 bids. So there's a bit of a bracket action happening. So on Saturday, they finish off the afternoon with some bracket play to try to continue to into the back door. So Victoria beats Washington B 13-2. UBC defeats the aforementioned Washington State team 13-3. That puts them into, what's this title? The Saturday backdoor pre-quarters. So they play again on Saturday. UBC takes down Dirt of Western Washington 13-7. And UVic defeats the Scotsman from Utah State. Utah State made nationals last year, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a big win for UVic. Now we're going to head into Sunday backdoor quarters. So now these 2 teams have to win 3 straight games to make it to nationals. UBC, big win over Zion Curtin from Utah, 11-9. Then we get, I don't really want to talk about this because such a controversial ending here. UVic falls to UW, which is Washington. Sun Dodgers 13-12. Universe Point. UVic thinks they have the score. Looks like it should be a strip call. Once again, I don't have the best perspective because I'm watching it you can imagine I'm watching it on another monitor, but the way our setup is in Discord, I actually see multiple screens. And so it's you don't get the full view that maybe you at home got. I know there was a screenshot of it as well. So basically, I think it was ruled, from what I gathered, a foul, not a strip, and it's uncontested with the foul. UVic actually turns it over. This was supposed to be a goal. It's kind of similar to what happened with Yale, but there was no observer ruling here in this situation. So UVic has it. I think maybe a couple passes later, they turn it over, and then Washington works it up and scores, and then UVic season is over. So just a really tough way to end for them. You have to feel for this UVic side. They put a lot out there, and as you will hear in the interview with the women's team, I do talk about the camaraderie that the UVic program has. So really respect what they do over there. It's just a tough loss for them. But things are avenged a little bit for UBC because they lost to this Washington team last year to end their season. They win by a big score, 13-8, to set themselves up into the backdoor final. But, I wasn't there, so I can't tell you if they ran out of steam per se. But they do fall to Oregon State in the game to go, 13-8. Oregon State only had to play the one game in the morning where they lost to Oregon, a very close one, 13-11. So both Oregon teams are headed to nationals. Washington is not. They were the 2 seed in this tournament. Great effort, though, from UBC. Got to give some love there because I don't think many people, they did, but not a lot of people picked them to go all the way they did into the game to go. So to have 2 men's teams in UBC and McGill make it to the game to go is really cool and a testament to their programs, and we want to see them continue to move up and up there. So big seasons for both of them. Unfortunately, just coming up 1 game short. Unfortunately for Northwest men's, they don't have the same amount of bids as Northwest women's, which is where we're headed now. So this is where some interesting results happened, right? You had a pool of Western Washington, Chaos, UBC, UVic, and Utah, Spiral Jetty. Every team beats Utah here, okay, including UBC with a 13-0 thumping. That's big. UVic gets the win over Utah as well before that bagel by winning 13-10. But the big news of at least that regional to start was the Western Washington victory over UBC 13-11. There was some discussion about it on the Discord, about what happened, were starters rested, etc. But either way, Western Washington earned the victory. UBC goes down in that game. But it doesn't mean, obviously, their season's over. There's 6 bids out here, folks. But what happened was there was a 3-way tie now. So UVic beats Western Washington 13-12. And then UBC takes on UVic. And big scoreline out here, 13-2 is the final score. So that puts UVic, who had got that win over Western Washington, they're feeling good. They got 2 Ws. They're thinking maybe they'll get a bid on Saturday because they'll finish second in the pool, which automatically guarantees you a spot. But unfortunately, that's not the case because of the 3-way tie. They actually fall to third, so they got to fight through on Sunday, whereas UBC then has automatically qualified. UBC then takes care of business, winning their first place semi 13-7, and then winning the final to win the region for a second straight year, 13-8 over Oregon, a team that they faced off many times. So now there's a crossover pool. It's an interesting setup because BYU's not playing anymore, right? Because they don't play on Sundays. So now there's 4 other teams vying for 2 spots. It's not a bracket format. There was a couple crossover pool games. So UVic plays Montana and Oregon State and wins 13-2 and 13-0. Utah defeats Oregon State 13-1, which sets up essentially a game to go between Utah and Montana. And Utah makes it 13-5. So Utah takes the last spot. UVic gets 5th in the region. And like I said before in the intro, we're going to have members of both of those teams for the main event. So make sure you stay tuned for that because you can hear from UBC players and UVic players as they talk about regionals, their season, even a bit of last year as we look forward to their trips to Wisconsin. So that's regionals, the college postseason kind of wrapping up as we get into nationals in a couple weeks. D3 will come first, and then a week after there will be college D1. So make sure you call it D3 and then D1. Both are college nationals there. Now, quick UFA look. The Rush take on Boston in Boston. It doesn't go their way. 21-13. I'm seeing if I remember that correctly. Just going to double check myself here. Ryan Polaz leading the way with 3 assists and 3 goals. Akafumi Muroka, welcome back. I think he had a pretty strong game. I watched some of the highlights. He seemed like he was all over the field, back to his natural form there. So I think a good addition for them, like a veteran player who's played Japanese World Games as well. So a good player for the Rush to have with a lot of their young roster. Komira also 3 assists. I also like what they're doing in terms of equalizing a bit of the playing time. The lowest amount a player played was 11. it looked like, at least from what I saw, both D-lines were kind of getting burnout there, which is good because I think you'll need that as you continue to build for the future. Their home opener is this weekend on Saturday against Montreal at not Varsity. It's actually at Lamport, which is a little bit more west in the downtown area. So make sure you check that out. The only thing I'll add to the UFA discussion in the news is the jersey reveal for the Toronto Rush. If you haven't seen it already, their main jersey sponsor will be the AAA Casino out here. So if you take a look at their jerseys, you can hit up on Instagram. I'm just going to look at it again. You can see that it looks like they play for the AAA Casino, but it's kind of like that soccer style where there's a huge brand in the front. I couldn't even tell you any of these like EPL teams, but anyways, there's a big sponsor in the front, AAA Casino, and then it's in green too, so it does really stand out. And then you have the Rush logo on the top left. People making some jokes on Instagram, but it was curious to see some of the Facebook comments. Some people not a fan. I'm not going to really share exactly what I think, except for I think it's hashtag legitimacy, getting a brand on a big jersey. Some people are definitely not feeling the casino aspect of it. Someone joking, selling out to the gambling industry just like a real professional sport. Some people not too stoked about how, the Rush runs children's programs, and yet they're being sponsored by a casino, gambling, etc., sports gambling, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get right into that philosophical debate. I do think it's interesting that they're not the only team in the UFA that has this. Other teams are even sponsored by cannabis companies as well. So it's not just on this Rush jersey. You can see it on the Glory jersey as well. There's a brand front and center, and then the Glory logo up top. So I think it's moving forward in that direction. Kind of makes sense for the league in some ways because they're trying to make revenue in certain different avenues, and sponsorship, especially jersey sales, is one way to do that. And I think a lot of people, when they see those jerseys, are going to look up AAA Casino and be like, what is this website? Never been to it. And maybe they're going to be intrigued. So I think it's a win for the UFA in some ways as they gain a little bit more legitimacy. I know that's something that they really tried to do with like kind of their free agency, Babbitt, is he going to leave, blah, 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 like trying to just make it hashtag legitimate. So I appreciate that in some ways. So all the best to the Rush and the Royals. They go to battle this weekend. This is a pretty big game for both teams. You got to bet that both of these teams have circled this matchup on their calendar. So be on the lookout for a great game. If you're playing the tournament that we're about to preview, the Toronto Ultimate Exhibition taking place in Barrie, if your game gets done enough time, then you can go head out and check out that game. So make sure you go do that. That wraps up news. Remember, we're going to talk to members of UBC. So Mika, Kurahashi, Bolan is going to be the first main event. And then Ericka, Edgell, and Brynn Freeland from UVic will make an appearance as well. So stay tuned for that. And then, of course, the preview of TUX. So all that's going to come after the break.
This is Keith Rayner, Senior Editor for Ultiworld and host of Deep Look, and you're listening to the Huckin podcast, your coast-to-coast guide to all things Canadian Ultimate.
Welcome to the first of, we're going to say 3 main events on this episode, so there's a lot going on. But we got 2 members of UBC in the house, Mika Kurahashi, Bolan. Welcome to the show. Mika, second time, I believe. Ella, first timer. So we'll start with Ella. Introduce yourself, where you're from, what you do on UBC, all that good stuff.
Yeah, my name's Ella. I'm from Seattle, so one of the Americans on the team. I've been playing since I was in grade 7, and I'm a spirit captain for UBC.
Nice.
Hi, I'm Mika. This is now my 3rd year on the team, and I'm one of the captains here. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm
from Vancouver, right?
Burnaby, Vancouver.
Yeah. Vancouver area-ish, yeah. I don't know the place too well. I know there's like North. Anyways, we won't get into that. But let's start with last year because we didn't actually have some players on to talk about this. So last year you made it all the way to the semifinals, which was a really big deal for your team. I was there ground level scorekeeping and helping out with Ultiworld stats, and it was just fun to see your team run around during semis in kind of a bit of a dark stadium, But What was it like making semis, Ella, from your perspective, just to be able to have that experience under the stadium lights?
I mean, it's pretty unique and it's pretty special. I think the majority of the team had never played in an environment quite like that. So big, like new first experience for everyone. Tons of energy, really, really loud. Lighting was kind of weird, high pressure situation that I think the team hadn't really been in before. Overall, very exciting, but also very nerve wracking.
Mika, what would you say, like, you or the team learned from that experience as well?
Yeah, I think that we definitely felt that we hadn't been in that kind of situation before. And so kind of taking away from that going into this year, we definitely wanted to try to kind of create more pressure situations for ourselves, and even just like trying to practice more, putting ourselves in less than optimal kind of situations, whether that's like, I don't know, the lighting is bad at practice or different things, trying to get lots of people to be loud or whatever. But definitely trying to like simulate that as much as possible, so that we can kind of prepare for whatever weird environments we might face.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, like the stadium lights were a little bit odd. I'm going to say that because I was there, but also timing too, right? I think you played if I remember correctly, the last possible time slot, which is not something most players are used to doing. So you're used to playing that like early tournament style. You're not used to playing like an 8 p.m. local time or whatever time it was. So that does throw some things off. But let's move into this season. Mika, talk about you retain 2 members of your coaching staff from last year. So there's continuity there, and obviously a continuity with your players, as a lot of them as well. So what was the focus heading into this season?
I think it was really nice kind of being able to bring back our same like coaching squad, and having so many vets who are kind of familiar with all of our systems and stuff like that, because I think we were able to kind of move through a lot of that kind of preseason groundwork a little bit quicker, and just kind of get the rookies up to speed and move on from there. One thing that kind of related to all of the semis talk was we were trying to set up some work with mental performance related. So we're working with a guy from Ottawa, Devon, who's been kind of leading us through some workshops to kind of help us just prepare and work on our mental resilience. And I do think that that's something that we've tried to make a focus for the season. And so far, it seems like we've been kind of able to implement some of that throughout our tournaments and practices and stuff so far.
Yeah, so Ella, speak to the regular season a bit and kind of how it's gone. We'll talk about the postseason in a bit, but 1 loss on the year in the regular season. So a couple of tourney dubs and a close loss in a final. So kind of summarize how the season's gone from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, this was kind of the first year in a while that we had a really early season tournament. So we went down to Santa Barbara in like end of January, and got some really, really valuable reps down there. We had several close games kind of on day 2. And I think we did something that we didn't do last year, where we were down at half to Carleton, and then we're able to come back and win the game on Uni to take us to the finals. And then that game with Oregon was really close. So I think that's sort of a testament to how that kind of beginning of the season and mental resilience kind of ended up working. We were able to fight back, win the game, and win the tournament, which is great. And then about a month later, we were back in California for Stanford, where we had some pretty windy conditions. So kind of getting to work towards a more like physical side of like mental resilience, where you're dealing with unfavorable conditions, trying to break up wind, and dealing with that, where we made it all the way to the finals with pretty much no hiccups. The games were tight, but we were kind of in control the whole time. We were able to beat Colorado for the first time since our semis last year, which was definitely satisfying for, I think, a lot of people on the team. We had been kind of telling our rookies, like, oh, yeah, this is a team, that we lost to in semis. Like, it wasn't a good game for us. We're like, oh, yeah, we really want to beat them. And so we finally got to. The team was super hyped. And I think that kind of carried over into the finals, where we went up fairly early against Vermont. Game was going pretty well. And then kind of end of the game, I think we kind of got in our own heads. People started getting a little quiet on the sideline. Vermont went up a few breaks, and we ended up losing that tournament, which was not ideal, but I think it was good to have that punch in the face early in the season instead of, at nationals, which is what our leadership has been saying. And then went back down to Seattle a few weeks later, and I don't want to say steamrolled our opponents, but had a pretty solid tournament, and won Northwest Challenge, which was sick.
Mika, anything to add from your perspective there?
I do think that this year we were kind of able to just have more tests in our regular season than last year. I think, last year it was just kind of Stanford and Northwest was our two big tournaments, and we lost earlier on in Stanford. So we didn't get to kind of play some of the higher ranked teams. So I think one of the things this year that we really made a focus or priority was trying to make sure we were really pushing to get into those semis, finals games so we could play against those top ranked teams. And I think that was something, we were quite successful at doing. And I think we're hoping that will kind of really set us up well to have success down the run in the postseason. Because I don't think we were really had that many opportunities last year to play against those top teams the way we have this year.
If my memory serves correct, based on what's going on Instagram there, Ella, you've had some scrimmage opportunities with teams in the area too, right? I think TC at some point, no, and Traffic, you've had some opportunities to scrim some other teams, right? Not just at tournaments.
Yeah, we've had some great opportunities to play against some of the best players in Canada, which has been awesome. We have a scrimmage against Traffic, which is the Vancouver club team, coming up in a few weeks. So really just trying to play against people who are better than us and have that experience and have dealt in high pressure situations and know how to really disrupt a zone or put a ton of pressure on an offense. And I think playing against people who are like that and who have that experience and those abilities is really going to help us prepare and has helped us prepare to play against those top level college teams that we want to compete with. So it's been really valuable getting reps for up and down the roster, all the way down to our rookies from Mika and Maddie and Anna, our captains, our goats, all the way down to those first year rookies who've been doing great. So getting to have everyone compete against players like that, I think has been really valuable.
And is that going to be a stadium game as well? Is under a nighttime stadium game or no?
Yes, I don't know how nighttime it'll be. I think the sun will still be up, but we've booked out the UBC stadium to scrimmage against Traffic. We're trying to get a bunch of people in there, kind of simulate that really loud, really energy intensive environment, to try and prepare us, our rookies, everyone, for a potential stadium game at nationals.
So if you're a Vancouver Ultimate player, what is it on a Tuesday or Thursday, or is it
Saturday
a Wednesday?
night. It's prime time.
Hey, no excuses. You don't have practice. So no excuses. You got to get out to the game. Is it admission? How's the entry work?
Yeah, we're currently selling tickets for the event. They're available through our Instagram, UBCW Ultimate. Check it out. We are trying to get a full house, make it loud. Really trying to channel that National Stadium environment in preparation for Nationals, and it'll be a good game.
Yeah, definitely check it out if you're in the Vancouver area. So now let's move to the postseason. Conferences went well, and then regionals. You took the region, but there was an L along the way that got some people talking in the Discord for sure. So I don't know who wants to talk about regionals in general and what happened there in the one loss in that tournament.
Ella, do you want to speak to regionals in general, and I can touch on that Western Washington game?
Yeah, sure. Okay, we'll ignore the Western Washington game for a moment, but we'll just say we lost that game. It was definitely an upset. No one on the team was really expecting it. But I think we were really able to turn it around right after that, kind of 180, and we actually bageled the next team we played, and then against UVic beat them 15-2. So our next two games are very lopsided. We were able to bring the energy, bring the hype into those two games fairly easy. And then day two, we had what was it, a semis game against UW and then a finals game against Oregon. Game against UW, we made sure to come out firing this time. Energy was high. People are on the sideline, just talking the whole time. Lots of cheers, lots of hype. On the field, I think people were really dialed. That game went really well. Went into the finals against Oregon, a team we've seen many times this season. And so we know them pretty well and they know us pretty well. We changed a few things in our system to try and like change things up a little, see how it would work. Things worked really well. Again, defense was on fire. Offense was doing really well. And I think we were, really able to kind of keep the pedal to the metal for that last 2 games and bring the title home.
Yeah. Okay, I can get into the Western Washington game. Obviously, wasn't our favorite game of the year. But yeah, that was our first game of the day, and we did kind of decide to drive down Saturday morning since we had the later start. So all of us had just kind of come off of, whatever 2-hour drive from Vancouver, and then we were kind of like watching the boys game when we got there, kind of just rolling in, a little bit more of a laid back, relaxed kind of vibe, as opposed to kind of getting there and being really dialed in and focused on what we were kind of there to accomplish. And honestly, like, credit to them because they played like the best game ever, like we've ever seen them play. Like, they just really didn't give us a lot of opportunities to score on them. Like, they very rarely made any unforced errors. Like, anytime we were trying to get the disc on D, we had to like make the play. They weren't going to just like, make a throwing error or drop the disc. Like, those mistakes weren't happening. And so we didn't have a lot of opportunities to kind of, get breaks. And when we did, they had this kind of zone defense situation, that I guess gave us a little bit of trouble, especially when they were throwing that out against our D-line offense. We were just kind of having a bit of a hard time like working it up, especially because it was most of the time upwind. So it was like this going upwind against this zone. And yeah, they just didn't give us very many opportunities to punch in breaks. And yeah, and then it was over, and we were like, oh, well, now what? But I do think we were able to bounce back really well, like Ella said, and it was a good, opportunity to kind of test our resilience and ability as a team to be like, okay, like, that's happened, it's in the past, now what? And like, how can we move forward from it?
Appreciate that perspective, because things could have gone more downhill, right? Like, you're spiraling down potentially. So thanks for sharing that. And as we wrap up here, what are some next steps for the team? You mentioned obviously the showcase game. Ella, what are some other things your team is looking to do? I assume you've booked your flights yet, or like that kind of stuff. Maybe talk a little bit about how you're going to raise some funds to get there.
Oh, goodness. We've done the majority of our fundraising so far. Flights are booked, hotels booked, so everything's kind of in place for us to get to Wisconsin, which is nice. Shout out Mika for organizing all of that. Thank you. But I don't know, next steps, we only have a few practices left. We're going to have some leadership being gone in Columbia for these next 2 practices, so it's going to be interesting with this, like a smaller squad, mostly younger players and rookies who are going to be there. But I think it'll be really important to kind of keep the focus on the fact that these are like very valuable reps, and it can be easy to kind of like discount the fact that half the team isn't here, or like just because we have a small squad, like these reps don't matter. But I think trying to keep the focus on that we have 5 or 6 practices left. Every rep counts, every minute counts. We're here with the team. We only have a limited amount of time with each other. So just trying to make the best out of it and just keep competing with each other.
Anything to add there, Mika?
Not too much. I think the biggest thing for us, is probably the showcase game. That's kind of our last opportunity to try to do any last fundraising, and also is kind of our bigger event to kind of cap things off before we head to Wisconsin. Yeah, kind of like Ella said, just trying to keep up the intensity, keep building. And I think we're really just trying to make sure our practices are just set up to try our best to prepare for nationals in terms of building the pressure, intensity, and also just trying to kind of simulate maybe like other teams' playing styles, things like that, to kind of make sure that we're at our best and we're as prepared as possible going into the tournament.
And as we wrap up this segment, I always like to get shout outs. I know, like I always say, you could shout out everyone, but we're going to try to, just for brevity's sake, give a couple. So maybe it's from regionals or just during the season. So I don't know who wants to start first, who has one top of mind, but I'll let you two fight over that choice.
I have two. I can do it really quickly. We've already shouted out Devon, but I want to shout him out again. I think it's been really helpful having someone other than our coaches kind of guide the team in terms of like mental resilience and strength. I think it's been really helpful. And then shout out to Emily Marshall, because at regional she had a massive layout D, and I think it was her first one, and it was so sick. And I think she got bookends, so I think she scored the point too, and it was awesome.
Cool. I've got a couple too. One, shout out to Steven at Jointworks, because he's going to be coming to nationals with us to help us stay healthy. So we're really happy to have him on board with us. And yeah, I think that'll be really awesome. Also, shout out to the UBC boys team, because they put up such a good fight at regionals, and we were really proud of them for making it to the game to go, even though they didn't make it all the way. They battled through, that backdoor bracket to get to that game. So shout out to the boys for that.
Yeah, that was a great fight. Just seeing their run through the bracket there, taking down a team that they had lost to last year to end their season in UW. So big shout out to the men's team for sure. Ella and Mika, shout out to you for coming on the podcast. I wish you the best of luck, and we'll see you in a couple weeks in Wisconsin. So thank you again for coming on, and stay tuned. Second main event, got some members of the UVic women's team to come on the podcast as well. So we'll see you right after the break.
Hey, this is Jamie Boss, coach of Ottawa's Crank Mixed Ultimate, and you're listening to the Huckin podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.
All right, folks, welcome to the second of three main events for this episode. So lots going on. We got two members of the UVic women's team in the house. Let's go. We are staying in the West Coast. We had Vancouver on earlier, and now we're going up to Victoria, a place I've been one time, all the way like 12 years ago. So first CUC, long time ago. But we have Ericka, Edgell, Brynn, Freeland on the podcast. Thank you for coming on. We'll get you to introduce yourself, where you're from, and how long you've been playing for UVic and what you do for the team. So Ericka, let's start with you.
Awesome. I'm Ericka, and I have been playing for the Vikes for 4 years now. I'm from North Van, and I spirit captained for 2 years, and then this is my first year captaining.
Nice. Captain Edgell in the house. Brynn, how about yourself?
I have also been on the team for 4 years and from North Van as well. Me and Ericka joined together back in first year, and this is my second year captaining on the team.
Nice. Did you know each other before, like the team? So you kind of went to UVic together? Is that like you made a pact, we're going to UVic and playing Frisbee there? Is that right?
We didn't make a pact before we got here, but I did convince her to play once I started.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't going to play, and then Brynn reeled me in, and I'm so glad she did.
Yeah, I'm sure UVic's also happy that Brynn reeled you in. So before we even talk about the season, we got to go way back to last year. And there was a thrilling game to go to get to nationals. It's on our Instagram page. You can kind of scroll through and find it if you want, folks in the audience. Really cool atmosphere. Unfortunate circumstance with the coach having to leave. So like UBC coaches were stepping in. There's just a lot of like interesting circumstances. So talk about that, because that was a big win for your program to get back to nationals. So I'm not sure who wants to start and talk about that event, but
yeah,
I'll let
I can start us off. Well, I get chills just like thinking about that game because the atmosphere was so crazy. We did have an unfortunate circumstance where our coach Amira had to leave, and we got Robbie and Danny from UBC to come out and help us. And our other coach, Julie, was also helping us. And we had the entire UBC women's team and our open team cheering us on. And it was just the most insane sports atmosphere that I've ever been a part of playing. And going into that game, it was against Western Washington. We had not beat them. Like, we hadn't even really come close. And it was our fourth time seeing them. And it was game to go, super hot, needed to win. And it all just came together at the perfect moment. And it was so much fun.
How many players did you have that tournament, like that game?
I think going to the tournament, we brought, I want to say 17. And before that game, we had 3 like that weren't playing because of a heat stroke. But they were too excited for the potential of going to nationals, so they rallied and tried to make it through that game. But I think by the end, we're down to like 15, 14 people playing.
Yeah, wild. That was in Utah, correct? Was it in Utah?
Yeah.
It was pretty warm out there. Brynn, anything to add about that experience? Because that, like I said, that was an epic game out there.
Yeah, I think we were just also excited about like the potential of it happening. And each time we've played Western Washington before in that season, we were like, felt it. We were like, it's so close. We could get there if we worked for it. So just having the energy from the sideline gave us enough like power to get through it. And it was very exciting since it was the first time that the Vikes had made nationals since 2015. I think it was the 3rd time that we had ever made it. So pretty big deal.
Yeah, and one thing, I've said this before publicly on the podcast, UVic does a really good job of embracing, like the alumni just love it. Like they want to give back and they're just really supportive. So it's something that I'm very jealous of for other college programs. I think they need to take the UVic model there. I'm sure a lot of UVic players have tattoos, right? Is that correct? Maybe not you two, but is that true?
We have heard that others have, and who knows, maybe we will someday soon.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I like that. All right. Let's talk about the season now. You played 3 regular season tournaments, I believe.
Yeah.
3 regular season tournaments. So, Brynn, walk us through how the season's gone from your perspective.
Yeah. In the fall, we started out recruiting. We got a lot more rookies than we were expecting. We got about 15, which is like pretty much double our roster last year. So the focus for the fall was like building chemistry and developing some of the newer players. So then when we hit like tournament season, we had to dial in a little bit. And it was very exciting starting off Santa Barbara. And it was our first time. A lot of us went to Stanford. And then we also did Northwest Challenge this year.
And Ericka, any games at those tournaments particularly stand out to you that you can like, maybe there's a couple of games, maybe it was even a loss, just that like was something that your team could build off of, anything that you can think of?
I think any time that we faced teams like Western Washington or BYU or UW, those have always been very grindy games, and I think our team thrives off of that energy. So I would say like our game at Stanford against UW, our first game of the tournament, like that was, everyone was dialed in, even through some unfortunate travel circumstances. Everyone was dialed in for that game and super, super grindy, and it was awesome.
Yeah, and then we'll jump into the postseason here. Cascadia Conferences is the tournament. It's always a interesting name with conferences. I know people are used to sectionals, but there's a big W. So let's talk about it because it's a big win. You faced this team multiple times and weren't able to get the W over this team. So, Brynn, talk about that game at conferences.
Yeah, it was a similar feeling to last year with playing Western Washington a bunch and knowing we were close, but like not quite there. So we played them twice already in this season. At the end of both games, we were like, I feel like we can do it. We just weren't quite there on those games. So we were very fired up coming into this game. It was on day 2, so it was going to be our last game of the day. And we knew if we could win it, it would have us placing 3rd in our section, which would set us up well for regionals, which was a goal of ours. So we had to shake off our rustiness from playing Oregon. We lost that game, and we knew that UW was playing UBC at the same time, and they also lost the game. So we knew it was about who could rally harder and who could bring the energy. So we took a few minutes before the game, did what we had to do to get ourselves hyped, and just like went out hard. And I think just having that like mentality of like winning the mental game really helped us because we broke pretty early and started getting the momentum. And like by half, we were up 8-4. And it just kept going from there.
Anything to add there, Ericka, about that game?
Again, that was just like such a fun experience, and both teams were really going for it. And I was just really proud of how our team was able to rally after losing to Oregon, because we were all like pretty down in the dumps. We didn't play as well as we had hoped we were going to, but we were able to bring it back to win, which has been hard for our team to do sometimes. So I was just really proud of everybody.
Now, let's talk about regionals, because your region got a lot of bids out here. Okay, so 6 bids, that's a lot for your region. So not saying it was guaranteed heading into the tournament, but you still got to put in the work. But talk about regionals from your perspective there, Ericka. Like, what did you see out there? Another big game against Western Washington's in that tournament as well. So
yeah, we were really excited about having Western Washington and Utah in our pool. We had a good game against Utah last year at regionals. And we went into the tournament wanting a bid secured on Saturday. And we knew to do that, we needed to win at least 2 games that day. So our first game was against Utah, and we came out of the gates firing and beat them 13-10. It was a really spirited game. We love Utah. We always have a great time. And then going into our Western Washington game, we knew they wanted it just as much as we did, and it felt like a bit of a repeat of last regionals. And we ended up winning on Universe, which was huge, and we were just so fired up about it. Unfortunately, there ended up being a 3-way tie for first in our pool, so winning our first 2 games didn't end up being enough to secure a bid. But it's all good. We were able to play it out on Sunday, and we beat Montana and Oregon State to secure that bid. So overall, super fun weekend. Wish it maybe had gone a little bit differently on Saturday, but it was a great time.
Yeah, referenced it in the earlier interview with UBC, but not many picked Western Washington beating UBC in pool play. So that kind of put things topsy-turvy there. And then, of course, the 3-way tie then puts you third, which means you have to fight through that other bracket there. But you won 13-2 and 13-0, so really just commanding performances. Brynn, what was the key for your team to reset on Sunday, knowing that you had some work to do still? You didn't achieve what you wanted getting a bit on Saturday. How did your team reset for the next day?
Yeah, I think we had the mindset of only focusing on what we could control, and we had done what we had to do on Saturday, and the rest was out of our control. So we just knew that since Sunday, we still had to win 2 games. So we went out there focusing on what we could do, and we put it all out there and took those 2 games so we could secure our bid for Nats.
And going into Nats, are you going to have a bigger roster than 17? Like, are you going to have more than 17 players this time around, or is it you're keeping it low?
We're going to have more than 17, but not a huge roster just because it is a far travel. So we're going to have looking around 20 right now, still figuring out. We just started booking flights today. So people are still figuring out work and expenses and all that right now.
Yeah, that's the thing with for the spring series here for Canadians. Exams are done. So a lot of kids are out there with their summer jobs. They got to book time off work. And usually you probably just got that job because it's May. And so to ask to get off work is kind of difficult. So Ericka, tell the people what your next steps are. You mentioned booking flights. Do you have some practices coming up? Fundraising? Like, what do you got going on in the next few weeks before Wisconsin?
Yeah, we are kind of split between Vancouver and Victoria player-wise. So we're looking to try to do some sort of training camp, maybe in Tawasin to have like a midway point. Or if that's not going to work out, we're going to try to run a practice here and one in Victoria. Like Brynn said, like we started booking flights today, looking at booking hotels. And we're looking to do some fundraising to help as many people as we can get to Wisconsin. So we have a link in our Instagram bio where you can donate directly to the Vikes, and you get a tax receipt for it too. So it's a great way to donate. Yeah, Brynn, anything else I missed?
Yeah, I think we will be coming out with 1 or 2 more fundraising plans in the next 2 weeks, so you can keep an eye out on our social media on other ways you can help us. But any help that you can give us would be great. Most of the students are paying for it all by themselves, and the tournaments add up quickly. So anything will definitely help us get out there.
Well, you have a lot of alumni support going on because you had a couple of guest coaches, right? My former teammate Trevor Connecto coming out there. I think he drove through the night. He drove really far from Kingston to Wisconsin for this, and we met there. So that was fun last year. So do you have alumni coming or what's going on there?
We don't as of now. Trev did talk about it. He thought about it, but I don't think it's going to unfortunately work out for us this year to have Trev with us. It's very sad, but it's understandable. So as of now, we just have our coaches coming up with us.
Awesome. No, just correction. It was actually Ohio, not Wisconsin. I just realized it was in Mason, Ohio. So little fact check on the pod. Now let's wrap up with some shout outs. My usual preamble statement is can't shout out everyone because this podcast will then go, I know you love all your teammates, but are there a couple people you can give shout outs to from your team? So Ericka, let's start with you.
Yeah, I want to shout out one of our rookies, Leia Fulton. She just had such an outstanding tournament, was hitting the deck all over the place. And I know she caught a few of my super janky throws, so I was very thankful for that. And yeah, I just thought she was outstanding.
And we also had 3 of our handlers. It was potentially their last regionals: Alicia Brawley, Lucy Bridle, and Emily K. Layton. They're super reliable and solid handlers that we will definitely miss after this. So we just wanted to thank them for keeping us going.
Yeah. You're both not seniors then? You're coming back for another year or what's going on?
Yeah. We both got
so
one
you're trying
year.
Building towards not just this year, but you want to get back to nationals next year as well. So that's great.
Exactly.
Thank you both for coming on the podcast. Any other final thoughts either you have for the Huckin audience back at home?
Maybe just one last quick shout out to our coaches, Remy and Amira. We could not do it without them. They volunteer so much of their time and they're just so awesome and we love them.
Cool. Let's leave it at that. Give love to the coaches because they're often volunteering a lot of their time, paying some of the money out of their own pocket, just giving of themselves to help the team. So thank you both for coming on the podcast. Good luck. We'll see you in Wisconsin in a couple weeks. Stay tuned for part 3 main event, which is a preview of a big club tournament, one of the first early season tournaments out in Ontario. So stay tuned for that. Ericka, Brynn, thank you for coming on. And like I said, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
This is Nick House from Regiment Ultimate in St. John's, Newfoundland. You're listening to the Huckin podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.
All right, let's talk about TUX at the 3rd main event, folks. It's a little bit of a longer episode. We love it. So this is a tournament that I have fond memories of just playing it for many years for different club teams I played on. So I just really enjoy this tournament. So I'll definitely speak fondly about it. Blue and Alin do a great job with Ultimate Experience to run this tournament for teams to get some experience for their season, get some reps. And this year has a very unique structure because what's going to happen is there's going to be 7 games that you're guaranteed. And those 7 games are going to happen at the exact same time for every single team in this tournament. That is wild. Sucks for me a little bit because I want to do some early scouting, see what club teams who are going to see UC are looking like, who's on their roster, because not every team, of course, has released their rosters yet. So I was hoping to maybe get a glance, and that's going to be tough because I'll be playing, so you're not be able to see every team in action. So that is one of the tricky parts. If you're a UFA fan, the benefit is this game ends at 3:45. You can head down to the rush game. But remember, this tournament is not in Brampton like last year or in Toronto in years past. It should really be called Bucks because it's in Barrie this year. So the Barrie Ultimate Exhibition. Let's start in the women's division. 8 teams. So they're just going to be round robin. I mean, it makes sense. They did round robin style last year. So I'm going to go off this is seeded the way it is. So Incognito, the first seed out of Toronto, PPF, Kitchener-Waterloo, Oz out of Ottawa, Spiced Ultimate, a new Masters team out of the KW area. My best friend's wife plays on that team. So Elena, big shout out to you. And this team has a lot of players in that area. And it's interesting because there's another team seated right below them in Queen Peas that is also playing in this tournament. So they'll be able to play each other. I'm not sure, the origin stories of the split, but they're both kind of from the same area. So that's something to keep an eye on. Joy Huck Club, some ex-players from Lore, I was told, from tournament organizers. Lore itself, the Toronto Masters team is here. And North, from North Bay, love that representation. If I'm not mistaken, they came last year as well. So that's pretty fun. Incognito came basically second last year in the round robin. Stello won it all. Stello not making an appearance this year. So for this tournament, pretty straightforward. They just play everyone, and then the winner will be who wins the most games. Let's go into mixed. We got some Team Canada action out here. So U20 mixed is going to be in the house. I'm curious to see if it's the full U20s or if it's just eastern part, but I'm just going to not safely, but unsafely assume it's going to be the whole team. I think it'll be a good experience. The second seed is Big Cats and the Kittens. Rumor has it, I think they're playing the master scene this year. Some ex-Union, some players like that. Cam Harris, I'm not sure if he's on this team for this weekend, but I heard rumblings that he's on this team for Masters. Sorry to blow the whistle on you, Big Cats. Crank from Ottawa, Danger Noodle from Toronto. This will be interesting because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they're also playing, at least some players are playing in the Colombian tournament TEP, which we'll talk about next week in kind of a recap news section. Crux out of Hamilton, Crash out of KW, Notorious KWG out of Guelph, Waterloo, Cambridge, that kind of area as a Masters team. And then Local 613 rounds out the top 8. My former squad out here looking very different. Okay, they had the roster release. They're one of the clubs that have done that. And then more clubs to come. So we got Coda, a new team out of Kitchener-Waterloo, basically replacing Thunder, it looks like, because there's no Thunder here. Mixed Berries out of Barrie. Zen out of Toronto. A new mixed team, Platypus, also out of Toronto. Durham Mixed, Remix, another Toronto mixed team. Axiom out of Hamilton. And Pookie Bears, I was told second-gen Ultimate players from what I heard, so that's kind of cool. Let's jump into pools and kind of maybe talk about some matchups that intrigue me. So for pools, we have Team Canada U20 Mix, Local 613, Coda, and Pookie Bears. I think that Local 613 Coda game will actually be quite close. Team Canada U20 Mix, I think, is going to take the pool. Next pool is Big Cat and the Kittens, KWG, Mixed Berries, and Axiom. I think that's probably going to go to seed, but you never know what's going to happen. I should stay away from doing predictions because I'll be playing in 2 of these divisions this weekend. So I'll try not to do too much predicting out here. Mixed Pool D has Crank, Crash, Zen, and Remix. That's a really spicy early season matchup between Crank and Crash. 2 teams I think will finish similar at Nationals. I know Crank did a lot better than Crash last year, but I think Crash, they got some reinvigorate some new talent, so maybe they're going to be able to step up. Crank did really well last year at Nationals, and they're hoping to continue to build that momentum that they gained from last year's World's Year appearance at Nationals. Danger Noodle, Crux, Platypus, and Durham Mixed. Not sure what kind of roster Danger Noodle going to have, so I think Crux may be able to sneak one. Once again, I'm jumping into prediction mode here, so I'll try not to do that as much. Teams will play, obviously, each team in their pool, and then there will be crossovers between pools B and D, so that would be the pools with U20 Mixed and Crank as like the top seeds. And so like the top seed will cross over with the 2 seed, the 3 seed will cross over the 4 seed, etc. If you win again that matchup, you keep the seed. So if like the 2 seed beats a 1 seed, then they become the 1 seed. So for mixed, it'll be similar to open as well. It's kind of an interesting setup. So the top seeds from each pool after that crossover chaos, I'm going to call it, crossover round, each team of those top seeds will play in a round robin for 1st through 4th. So it's not a traditional bracket. I kind of like this. Put all the top teams together, just get them experience. Same thing for the 2 seeds. They'll fight for 5 through 8. 3 seeds go 9 through 12. And then the 4 seeds go 13 through 16. 3 games on Sunday, as I mentioned already, 4 games on Saturday. And remember, these games are all like at this, not same time, but like they all happen in the same time slot and they happen one after the other. So there's 15 minutes in between each game on Sunday. Same thing with Saturday, minus there's a half-hour break before that crossover. It actually says breathe in the schedule. So hopefully you guys do that. So now let's go to Open. I'll list off all the teams, and then we'll jump into pools. The number 1 seed is Canada U20 Open. Pipe is your 2 seed. Remember, they won the tournament last year. Too bad the 3 seed. Hound, Durham. Heard they got some talent back or reinvigorated. GT out of Toronto. Maverick out of KW, one of my former teams. Suspect, a new squad out of Toronto. They got a high seed out here. Phoenix out of Ottawa. New captains, Brad Boy out here for Phoenix. Moby, another new team. So I love that there's more teams springing up here in the Canadian series. Moby out of Hamilton. Monster, they're gonna have some players from Toronto. Orb, rebranded, new team, new philosophies out of KW Open Masters team. They're actually sending 2 teams, so they have another team that's seeded 15th. Bro, so love the naming rights there. Torontosaurus Rex, Grand Masters team out of Toronto, I believe. Goose, the second team out of the Maverick system. High Skyers out of KW. And then Phoenix, which I actually think the way it's spelled is B-E-E and then Nix, the name. But it's actually kind of like Phoenix from what I've been told. So anyways, in the pools, we have U20 Open, Phoenix, Moby, and Phoenix, like the C team. I don't love that they're in the same pool, but hey, sometimes that happens. Phoenix, Moby, will that be a good game? We'll find out. I think U20 Open. Oh, once again, I'll stop predicting here. So Phoenix, Moby should be a good contest. Pipe, Suspect, Monster, Bro in pool Open G. Open H will have Too Bad, Maverick, Orb, and High Skyers. And then Open I will have Hound, GT, Torontosaurus Rex, and Goose. This is the spiciest matchup, I think, out of any pool play that I can see in Open, and certainly perhaps in the whole tournament. Hound beat GT last year. I remember, I believe I predicted Hound not to win. I remember some of the guys were giving me a hard time about that, which is fine. We love the smoke. So Hound actually also came 3rd over GT. I'm not sure if they met in pool play, but they did meet, like I said, in the bracket where Hound won. So this is a good rematch for both of these teams with their new rosters. They're obviously going to have some returners and then a little bit of additions. So this will be a good matchup early on in the season, and 2 teams are going to be vying for bids in what's going to be a competitive Open division for CUC. So same format as before. Both of these divisions, Open and Mix, are similar. So essentially what I just said for Mix, copy and paste that over to Open. Okay, so I know it's going to suck, but I'm not going to do official picks this time because I'm playing for 2 different teams. Not going to tell you who yet. You're going to have to just come and say hi at TUX if you see me on the field. I won't be able to buzz around and, like I said, keep an eye on what's going on because of the fact that all the games happen at the same time. So some players love that. I know people have said, oh, why is this always on Mother's Day? I'm going to tell you this. From a very small sample size, one mother I asked about this that plays, she said, I would rather do this than being in a spa or relaxing. I'd rather play Ultimate on Mother's Day. So that is the ultimate gift, pardon the pun, for a mother, is to actually play this tournament. So for some of them, they love it. I know for some of you young players out there, you got to play and then you got to go home and spend time with your mom. Or for some of the moms out there, they just want to play. They ain't worried about the other stuff. They just want to go play Frisbee. So just remember that when you think about this tournament. I know some people are like, oh, it'd be kind of nice to not, have to play on Mother's Day. But I think this tournament is to stay in this time slot, which it has been. Just hoping that maybe it's in Toronto next year or just rebrands to Bucks. I think I would buy it if it just rebrands to Bucks. Late starts is nice too because Saturday is 9:30 and then Sunday is 10, ending at 2:15 on Sunday. So you have time to go hang out with your mother for this after this tournament. So please go and do that. If you feel so inclined. I'm not going to exactly tell you what to do, but that wraps up the episode for today. Thank you for tuning in. This was a long one, a lot of things going on. So keep an eye out for recap episodes related to a couple different tournaments, like I said, that have been happening. Subscriber only, I'll talk about TUX and my experiences and just some of the fond memories. I'm not going to go through every tournament, of course, but just some of my just favorite things about being in that tournament. So stay tuned for that if you're a subscriber. If you're not, you should be. So go ahead to Ultiworld and click subscribe and do that. You can get all their video library and stuff as well. With that being said, I will see you all next week. Some of you I might see on the field. Come say hi. Otherwise, yeah, we'll see you then next week. Peace.